This is the Kindness Matters podcast, a space for stories that inspire, challenge, and bring us a little closer together. If you've been looking for a reminder of the good in people, you're in the right place, because kindness matters, and so do you.
It's kindness we are.
Hey, hello, and welcome everybody to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun, as always. And as always, I just want to take a second and thank you all for joining. I say this every time, but in case there's somebody new here, we all have only so many hours every day. And the fact that you chose to take a portion of one of those hours to listen to this podcast means the world to me, and I'm so incredibly grateful. I'll tell you what, there's something else I'm incredibly grateful for, and that is my guest today. My guest is Neil Ford, and he has become one of the most recognizable and trusted, dang you, Neil Ford, one of the most recognizable and trusted voices in modern storytelling, not because he chases attention, but because he chases truth, humanity, and the small moments that remind us who we can be. After decades leading creative teams for some of the world's biggest brands, Neil shifted his focus to something far more personal, telling stories that cut through the noise and reconnect us to empathy, decency, and each other. His videos have reached millions across social platforms, not through shock or spectacle, but through sincerity. Neil has a rare ability to take an ordinary moment, a conversation in a parking lot, a memory from childhood, a stranger's quiet kindness, and reveal the profound lesson inside it. I am so excited. I have been following you forever. Welcome to the show, Neil Ford.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. That's a very sweet introduction.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. Thank you for that. I've been following you probably for a couple of years now. I think I stumbled across you on TikTok, most likely, which seems out of character for somebody my age to be on TikTok, right?
Well, you're on it.
I know now. My wife and I don't know if you know this, my wife and I have a home cleaning business, and during the pandemic, we were cleaning for a client, and we were both kind of reminiscing about how ugly the world was right then. And she goes, "Have you seen TikTok?" I'm like, that seems a little young for me. And she said, "I just go on it to watch the funny cat videos and dog videos and this and that and the other thing." And she goes, "And it makes me laugh and it brings me joy." And so I started, I got a TikTok account. And then at some point, I think I said, I could use this to promote my podcast, maybe, kind of, sort of. And here we are.
There you go.
And that's how I found you.
People that use TikTok are not quite hip to how personalized it can be. They don't quite make the effort to say, well, what am I interested in? In my case, I live in Southern California. So specifically in a little section they call the South Bay. And all I have to do is type in South Bay, Los Angeles, and all of a sudden I get all kinds of great restaurant reviews, and I'm seeing young people talking about what life is like, in the music scene there, and so on. And so I think if people just made a little bit of effort to curate their social media and communicate to the algorithm what it is they want to see, the algorithm, for all of its bad points, is also responsive to what you engage with. So this is one of the nice things for my sake, which is if you're sending messages of positivity and how not everybody is your enemy and you're not surrounded by threats, that people that have a kind of positive outlook, they'll find you and they'll be glad you exist. And so I try to do much the same when I'm on social media. If I see something that I can tell is just trying to rage bait me or is a clickbait, I will downvote it and move on. And I'll often block people that are doing that kind of thing as a signal to the algorithm. It's like, I don't want to see these people anymore.
Yeah.
And it creates, as you know, what you take in as information and entertainment is very similar in nature to food. if you consume garbage, you're going to become garbage.
Garbage in,
And
garbage out.
yeah, so I take pains to curate my social media now in a way that I wouldn't have. I can't honestly say I would even be on social media were it not for the fact that I post videos on it, and then I
Right.
want to engage with it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's gotten a lot of eyes on what you do, though. I mean,
Yeah,
you can say what you will about social media, and for sure the segment of it is total garbage. But and yet
yeah,
I
it's
found you, and
yeah,
and here we are.
yeah,
I I saw a couple of your videos first, but the first one that really stuck with me was your postcard from 1969, because I
yeah.
thought, that's what I want to tell. That's the story that I want to tell. And I should, you should go ahead and just tell us briefly what it's about.
Yeah, so if you go back to, if you look at where we are right now, things seem like they're sort of unprecedentedly bad. Like
Yeah.
everybody hates everybody. The country seems to be in the brink of a civil war and so on. And they don't have any context because they haven't lived long enough to remember in 1969, the country was tearing itself apart. In Vietnam, people were getting drafted to go to a war they didn't believe in. And there were horrible things being committed by our own soldiers and to our own soldiers. And there were, the FBI was actively engaged in spying on its own citizens and so on and so on. And it was the Manson family and the Zodiac killer in the Bay Area. And it really felt like the country was tearing itself apart. And people don't recognize that. And in that age, my
Mm.
father and I were driving from Los Angeles to Oakland on the 5. The 5 goes right through California's Central Valley, which is hot as the hinges of hell in summer.
Yes.
And on a Sunday, we were making this trip. Now, my father, who had grown up in the Depression, he was convinced that even in the Depression, it wasn't this bad in terms of the way that the country felt about itself. And so he was deeply suspicious and he was really disappointed in the human race. He'd lost all faith in his fellow man. So we're making this drive. We get to the bottom of the Grapevine, just south of Bakersfield, on a Sunday, just about 11:55. So it's going to turn really hot. And the car loses its coolant. We blew a gasket. Now the car can't move. This is back before cell phones, back before call boxes. We're on the side of the road on a Sunday, and my father's, he was angry enough to spit rivets. And he doesn't quite know what we're going to do. It looks like we're going to have to hoof it about 9 miles into Bakersfield in the middle of that California heat. And so hood up on the car, along comes this young cowboy in a flatbed. And he says, "Hey, fellas, looks like you got yourself in some trouble here." And my dad's like really skeptical about like why this guy stopped. He says, I can tow you into town if that'll help you out. And so he goes, okay. Now my dad's first thing to comment to this kid is, "I can't pay you because all we have is a Chevron gas card." So this guy says, "Yeah, I wasn't going to charge you." So he hooks us up with electrical conduit to his pickup and we all ride in together in Bakersfield. Now here's the thing. It's Sunday and nothing's open. So in order to get the mechanic that would work on his car, this cowboy plants himself outside of this church and waits for the service to exit. And then out comes the mechanic who's got one of those bolo ties. And, and he and his wife, come out looking in their Sunday best. And he says, "Yeah, I can get you hooked up." So they tow us over to the guy's garage and he puts us up on the jack, only to realize he doesn't have a part for this fix. So my father, who's like, "Hey, I can't pay you for this work." And they go, "Well, we'll work something out." Then they realize they got to go down to the local Napa parts store, which again is not open on Sunday. They got to get that guy to open the store for us to get the part. And my father has finally reached the point where he's like, "Listen, I cannot pay you. I only have this Chevron card. So we got to figure out how I'm going to settle this all up because I'm not selling you the boy. if that's what this is about. And
You went,
so they're all looking at my dad like, what the hell, bro? They're flummoxed that somebody is this distrustful. So the cowboy who started the whole thing, he says, listen, if it'll make you feel better, I've got a load of watermelons. I got to get off a rail spur. And so if I'll pay for the part, at least, if you'll help me get these watermelons unloaded. And so the mechanic says, yeah, we can figure out some kind of trade or something. So happily whistling, we're inside a rail car. It's got to be 130, 140 degrees in there.
Yeah.
And we're unloading watermelons, but my father is happy as a clam because we're earning our keep.
Yeah.
Well, we get to the end of this. We finally unloaded like about 6 loads of these watermelons back and forth with this flatbed. And the car pulls up just running like a top. They filled it with coolant and it's all fixed. And we're working out where we're going to send the money. And my father says, I don't quite know how to thank you fellas for such a good turn. And we're just about to go, just pitted out in our shirts, just sweat covered. And the mechanic says, hey, where do you think you're going? And it's this point when my father stiffens like a leopard and he goes, I knew it. And at this point, the mechanic goes, no. We're going to get, my wife's going to make a Sunday dinner. And we thought you and the boy want to get a shower, maybe get some clean shirts before you drive up to Oakland. Oh, okay. So we all have Sunday fried chicken on this picnic table in his backyard. And it's the greatest meal I've ever had. It was with the corn on the cob from the corn right over there. And the chicken that we're having is from the chickens right over there. And that was my first beer at 9 years old. They had one of those Budweisers you had to tap with a church key. You remember that? Didn't even have a pop top.
right.
And so I thought beer was disgusting, but nevertheless. So my father, all during that meal, he's not saying much at all. He just keeps shaking his head like this. And if you knew my old man, you knew what he was thinking, which is, I am so ashamed of myself for having thought the worst of these people.
Yeah.
And we get in the car on the way home. I'm wearing a cowboy shirt that had those fake pearl buttons. You know, the old timey cowboy shirts that they used to have?
Yeah.
Button things. Yeah, that's the one. So we go home and my dad doesn't say maybe 9 words on the whole drive back. And, we fill up a couple times using the Chevron card. And then we finally get to Oakland. I'm climbing into bed and he appears in the doorway. I can't see him much because he's just silhouetted against the light in the hallway. And he goes, listen, no matter what you see in the movies or you read in the papers or you hear on the radio or you read in books, let me tell you something. Don't listen to them. That's how people really are. And in that day, if you had told my father at the beginning of the day, so here's what's going to happen, Bill. You're going to be broken down on the side of the road in the deep summer of the Central Valley, in the high heat. And when you reach the end of this day, it's going to be one of the best days of your life. He would not have believed you. And about a month later, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And he saw it with different eyes then than he would have seen it at the beginning. And it struck me that story, which I would tell frequently at like Thanksgiving, that story deserved to be heard by other people. My daughter was the one who suggested I put it on TikTok.
Oh, really?
Because she thought it was the sort of message that, would reach other people's hearts because they'll recognize their old man in what my father was like.
Yeah. But I think, it was true in 1969. It's true today, right?
Most people are like that.
Most people
But the ones we see being their worst selves, the reason they're being that way is because they've been given license to by other douchebags who make a career out of dividing us and telling us it's okay to serve the worst angels of your nature. And because most people, when given an uplifting message, will behave as though that's, that they don't have to work. They don't have to react to the world out of fear.
Right. Right. And I was really surprised when we were speaking before the show. You had said that you had heard And because I think most people would hear that story and feel uplifted or inspired to be better or hopeful. But you said you've heard of some people who may have interpreted differently?
Well, I've gotten all kinds of peculiar reactions. The vast, vast bulk of people share that message with happiness to spread the word that, maybe people aren't so bad. And
Yeah.
maybe our self-image is based on people rage baiting us and trying to divide us. And that got something on the order of 6 million views or 7 million views. But nevertheless, you'll often hear, or not often, you will sometimes hear reactions like, that wouldn't happen today, or that only happened because you were white, or although I've had personal experiences that don't agree with that. I've had, I'm not going to believe the news accounts when my own personal experience. I'm going to believe my own eyes and ears, where I've run across unbelievable generosity. And even in cases, I used to work at a lumberyard in South Central LA. I think I was one of 2 white guys at this lumberyard. And the bulk of it was African American, and then the rest of it was Mexican. And after a time, I was shown incredible hospitality. I mean, I got called honky about 9 times a day, but it washes off you after a while, because you're like, I know why they're reacting that way. They don't know me. The people that know me down here feel good about me. And you learn a lot from it's not. I get that comment. I get it. But at the same time, you don't know that's how it would have gone down. That cowboy, I'm pretty sure he would have stopped for just about anybody. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And I'm also pretty sure that, under the right circumstances, it would happen to anyone. But I think the reason you are commenting that not everybody had that reaction is that some people actually use that video to tell a different story from the one I'm telling. They're not reacting to it as though people are the same wherever you go, or that most people are pretty cool, or that most people can be trusted. What they do is they use it to refer to a nostalgia of a country that's no longer there. And they bitch and moan about how America used to be. And it has completely gotten lost on them that what I'm telling you is 1969. It was if you'd lived then, if you'd experienced the trauma of what Vietnam was doing to people, and how people would literally say, I'm going to go out and shoot some hippies, you would not feel like that the country's going to hell in a handbasket. The country has always strained and struggled with its identity around goodness and kindness and and the other people in your life, and feeling threatened at every corner because somebody doesn't necessarily believe the same things you believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is such a fantastically structured story. And I think, again, most people took it in the
Most like
most people
statistically
took it in the spirit in which it was
99.99.
intended.
Right.
Right. So what is it about storytelling? Why does it matter? And how, why does it matter? Because here we are. I mean, a story like that can travel around the world, and 90% of the people who watch it will feel good about it. Some won't. That's on them. But why storytelling? As a society, as human beings, we started off storytelling, right? Did we lose that? Did we lose that ability?
No, not at all. Stories are the default operating system for human beings. I'm looking behind over your shoulder. You've got a book. It's filled with stories, no doubt.
Yes.
And it is the default operating system for human beings. It has been since the beginning. Since the time we were hunting woolly mammoths with sharp sticks, we have been sitting around the campfire telling each other stories in order to make sense of what it's like to have this experience. So we're saying, why is there a volcano? Why do the locusts show up every, circuit of years? What are the seasons about? Why do people die? You didn't come out of the womb and somebody hand you an owner's manual that explained everything. Everybody's got a holy book and they all say, well, this has all the answers. Well, I'm not so sure you're right about that, because if your holy book was so complete and it answered all questions, then why are people still angry with each other? And why are some of the most awful people I've ever met deeply pious, or at least pretend to be?
Yes.
And together we're going through an experience and we're trying to explain it. We're trying to make sense of it. In the end, we're hoping that it all adds up to mean something. So storytelling was ways we used to explain our environment to each other. And there's a really important element of storytelling, which is to quote Yuval Harari, the guy that wrote Sapiens. He says, the most important stories we tell are the ones we tell ourselves about ourselves. Who are we? What is a good life? Who is a good man or a good woman? What do you have to do to be a good person? It's really important that stories are how we decide what being a good person is. And when I tell a story like that postcard from 1969, what I'm trying to say is we haven't changed as a species between then and now. We still fight these battles. We're still angry about the same things. We still disagree about the same things. But you know what I found? You know what my personal experience was? That when we were in trouble and had nowhere to turn, somebody came along and helped us for nothing. They bent their day in half and went out of their way to help us. They fed us. They fixed our car with they never intended really at the beginning to ever hand us a bill. No. It's only because my father insisted that we, and he did pay them eventually by mail with a beautiful note and so on. But if you think about it, all that cowboy really was doing was he was just trying to be a good person. He was just living up to his own expectations. He had told himself a story that this is how I am as a person and this is how I'm going to live. And along comes somebody that lets me prove it. In a way, the big winner was the cowboy, because he'd lived up to his own expectations of what kind of man he was.
Yes.
And he'd set an example for me, a 9-year-old boy, to go, I'm going to be like that. And so what is the purpose of stories? It's to teach us how to behave and to teach us who other people are and that they're all having an experience.
You have this incredible knack, and it's probably why. I mean, you're a very successful storyteller, and you have this incredible knack of taking a memory or a moment and something that somebody else who maybe had the same experience wouldn't think twice about. Just small moments and creating, I don't want to say a parable, creating this moment of magic out of it. And I have this story. I have a story. I'd heard it. It's not mine. I'd asked a question on Reddit in the kindness community, and I'd said, what's one small thing that happened to you that had act of kindness that had an outsized effect?
Mm-hmm.
And this one guy said, it was after the pandemic. He was walking back to his truck. He'd been really down for like 2, 3, 4 months, just, feeling like crap about himself, about his situation. And he was getting to his truck after work, and all of a sudden he heard somebody say, "Hey man, nice beard." And he looked around and he saw a guy across the street and he was hollering at him, right? And he said, I had not been taking care of myself. I had not been grooming. I had not been, it wasn't like I was out there making an effort every day to take care of myself and look my best. But somebody took 2 seconds out of their day to point to me and say, "Nice beard." And he said, "I got in my truck and I cried because somebody had made an effort to try and make my day a little better."
Mm.
And that story stuck with me because it shows minimal effort on somebody's
Yeah.
part had a huge impact on somebody else.
There's a dark version of that story.
Is there?
That is told by a psychiatrist in San Francisco. This would have been right around 1968, 69. And
Okay.
so it's concurrent with my other story. What happened was that the Golden Gate Bridge is a place where a lot of suicides jump off the Golden Gate. And nobody ever jumps off looking at the ocean side. They all jump off the side that faces San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
And, as a kind of middle finger as they descend. And one day there was a person who had committed suicide on the bridge. They went and through the identification that was still on him, they went and they found his apartment, and he had left a suicide note. And in the note, it says, if on my way to the bridge, even one person smiles at me or says hello, I won't do it. Which means that nobody did. So in the very same spirit of the guy shouting out to him, "Nice beard," for all we know, that small gesture might have made the difference.
Yeah.
And so when you and I go into the world, you and I are both making an effort to find an opportunity to try to improve somebody's day. I even, as you may know from my stories, I always keep a pocket full of these ridiculous guys. And the
Berkey,
reason
is that his name?
Bjarke the Revenge Troll. And the purpose of it is to just inch towards trying to say, I went a little bit out of the way to make you smile because we're both human beings and I recognize that you've got a tough job. And the gesture, the extra little gesture, it has a disproportionate impact on people. And I learned this from being in advertising, which is if you're not making an extra effort to make people smile or touch them emotionally in your commercials, you're not even trying. Instead of being the signal amongst the signal and noise, you are contributing to the noise. When you are entirely self-interested, people not only are not interested in listening to you, but you've actually degraded their life experience today because you have created a suspicion that everybody is in it for themselves instead of somebody saying, we're all on this journey together and I have something that might be of interest to you. But you know what? As long as I've got your attention, let me make you laugh in the course of this. That a generosity of spirit in business, it refills the tank on people to feel like all hope is not lost. But I don't know if you've had this experience, Mike, where you get a message on LinkedIn and it's somebody who at first expresses some kind of feeling like, hey, I saw your profile and I saw this and I thought, we should connect. We have a lot in common. And then, it's going to be, because of experience, that 3 messages later, they're going to hit you with their sales thing. So that kind of thing is a pollutant to the commons. That sort of, I come on like a friend only to try and fleece you like a sheep. AI does this. AI has figured out, how to do a cadence of messages that will produce a response of signing up for your course. Whenever I get a message like that now, where they say, I'm very interested in what you're doing, I say, fantastic. Then you'll want this 30% discount code on my course. So here you go. And immediately they end contact.
I love that.
Because
it's like hanging up on the telemarketer, right?
Well, or
a whistle in the phone or something.
No, I don't. Telemarketers have a really hard job. So what I'll usually say to a telemarketer is I go, can I just stop you for a second? Listen, I'm not going to buy your service, but I know how hard it is what you do. I respect the fact that you take your lump. So listen, I'm just wishing you good luck today. And not for me, but go with God. Okay. And that to me, in a kind of perverse way, it's like they may run across somebody who needs what they have. So let me keep you going, bro. It's
Yeah.
the ones that come on like a friend and then backstab you with this kind of thing. Sometimes I don't react out of courtesy, by the way. I react out of cynicism. Have you
Oh,
ever done this, Mike, where they start taking you down that path where they're
yeah.
saying that? And so what I will do is I will send them a screed that's like 2 paragraphs long of just buzzword-filled nonsense where you can't really tell what I'm saying. It's like, I'm so glad you reached out because I'm engaged in trying to upscale a blah 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 with that brings a divergent. It's just buzzwords and it's 2 paragraphs, and then they'll say, "So, how do you find that this works?" And I'll send them another 2 paragraphs, and I get AI to gin up this stuff for me.
Sure.
So, and then eventually, I'm just waiting for them to hit me with the sales thing. And I have been talking to some guy. I think we must have exchanged 16 messages. He never tells me what he does. He's only interested in learning more about what I do. So I just keep saying, I eventually, at some point or another, I'm going to stop. But I'm kind of perversely interested in how long his algorithm is going to keep trying to get me
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I have been out of the corporate world for so long, and I'll scroll through LinkedIn, and I'm seeing all these buzzwords and, you know, but yeah, I can't even say them. But it's just like, I would be so lost if I had to get a corporate job right now. God forbid.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, the environment has been automated and algorithmized and weaponized in such a way that the incentives are misaligned with the human experience.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it used to be when you and I were running in our heyday, there really was such a thing as a kind of company loyalty, which was there was a contract, a social contract. Um, your boss understood that if they have you working 2 weekends in a row and you've worked a good solid 14 days without a break, you are owed something in return.
right.
And most human beings would react out of generosity and kindness and gratitude for the extra effort you'd shown. This was when you found mentors. Like a mentor would say, I'm very grateful that you did that. You remind me of me.
Oh, yes.
Therefore, can I give you a tip on this and that and the other thing? And that it's really, we have been propagandized to not react that way anymore. That they're, regular layoffs are, whether the company's doing great or not, they do the Jack Welch thing and they just go through there and rank and yank. And at that point you go, you know what? If that's how you're going to behave, there's a million ways I can paper cut this place into oblivion.
Yeah.
So don't, it sounds like what I'm saying is cynical. What I'm actually saying is most people are disinclined to do that. And yet there are forces at work that are misaligning the incentives of how people behave as managers. And it is anti-productive. They're actually having a consequence that's de-incentivizing their workforce to contribute. And it's bad for business to behave like a dirtbag.
Right. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, even the last corporate job I had, the company had screwed up somebody's order horribly, and I apologized, and I got written up because my manager said, "You should never apologize." I'm like, we screwed up.
That's
What?
very.
That
Oh,
required an
was he worried
apology.
about like legal indemnification or something? Because if you admit
I
a
don't
mistake,
know.
you're on the hook for.
Never
You know,
apologize to a client. I, yeah, okay. Anyhow, uh,
we're going off road now because we're
we are so
our inner
far off the
cynics
tracks.
are showing up.
Talk to me about Storyfire and what prompted that, because
Yeah.
y
So
you teach
Storyfire.
people how to tell stories.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's a sort of fluffy thing to teach people how to tell stories. But in fact, it's a career enhancing tool. It will fast track you for advancement. I tell every audience, I guarantee you that I can affect the trajectory of your career. And even if you're skeptical, I'll prove it to you. And there is abundant evidence, and I've seen it over and over again, that when people can captivate a room, when they can hold the attention of a 300-person gathering, that when they can stand up in front of a board of directors and seize and hold their attention and then lead them to a logical, moral, here are the action items, this is what I need you to prove. When you can do that skillfully, you advance quickly, because when a board of directors looks at you at, say, 27 and they go, that son of a bitch was not intimidated at all. Like they walked in here and knew exactly. I'll give you an example, a small example, but storytelling is not always what people think it is. Storytelling is how you behave in such a way that it communicates who you are. And just as important, it communicates your attitude towards the person you're talking to. So it goes like this. Mm-hmm. We used to report to the CFO for a very peculiar reason. My creative team used to report to the chief financial officer of Saatchi & Saatchi, big advertising agency. Now, I happened to notice, and my number two, Tim, happened to notice that the CFO's calendar, his executive assistant's calendar of his time was in 10-minute blocks, because he was so busy. He was the global CFO for this giant company. So you got to get to the point with this guy really quickly. Now, other people hadn't noticed that his time is blocked out in 10-minute increments. So they would think they were going to roll in there and get a 30-minute meeting or something like that. Now, what Tim figured out, and Tim was a brilliant storyteller, is he goes, oh, the executive assistant must be furious when people go over their allotted time. They're spoiling her afternoon. They're really wrecking it for her, because now she has to juggle everybody. Hey, now she got to make calls and say, you can't come up for another 10 minutes, or you get the idea. She doesn't want him stacked up outside of his office.
Right.
And she can't very well march in there and tell this person to shut up. Yeah. And Bill wants to be courteous, so he doesn't want to shut anybody else up either.
Right.
What Tim did, such a shrewd move. Next time we walked in, he says, so that the EA can hear it, Bill, this is going to take 3 minutes and 28 seconds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for you to approve this software purchase. Here's the background. This is what we're operating off. This is how we're doing it now. We're suffering from this issue. This software, I believe, will solve this problem. It costs this amount of money. It will take this amount of time to integrate. If I can get your approval on this budget, this expenditure right now, we'll have the system integrated up and running and not have that problem in 2 weeks. And then he looks at his watch and he goes, "Whoop, I was wrong. 2 minutes and 38 seconds." Now, why would he do that? What's the point? The point is so that the EA hears when Tim comes into the room, he's going to be conscious of your time. Yeah. He has rehearsed this, the 28 seconds. Why would he say that? So that he has proven, I've rehearsed this enough times to know exactly how long it takes, which means I've come into the room prepared, which means I've given the executive assistant, I've given her time back. He's got a buffer. He's got a cushion. He can go to the bathroom and not worry about that. Now, what happened from that point on was he would always do that. He would walk in and he would announce, this is how long this is going to take. This is the decision I need your approval on. Bill would sometimes say no. He would go, I'm not going to approve that. I need to talk to you about something else because there are reasons I can't spend money on that. Make an appointment with Marianne and she'll get you back on the thing. Do you think Marianne overheard the whole thing? So she's already getting you another appointment when he's back from his trip. What Tim understood is that the story Tim was telling was we are efficient people who prepare before we arrive. Despite the fact that we are creative people by profession, we are extremely orderly, respectful, and we understand the pressures you're under. So how you do anything is how you do everything is the way that we sort of operate. And what he was saying to Marianne, the assistant, was, we do everything like this. Therefore, if you have a 5-minute window or a 10-minute window and suddenly somebody bailed out of their appointment, call us and we will arrive and fill that gap.
Nice.
And so you see what I mean by storytelling. Well,
Right.
the Storyfire course is to create an entire persona, an entire career-enhancing approach to how you communicate in business so that you are perceived the way you want to be perceived. You are perceived as someone who is promotable. You are perceived as someone who you do not want to fire them during the layoffs. This one you want to keep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm in the business of, is saying, I can help you be more persuasive. I can help you tell stories that seize the emotions so that people have already decided they want to approve it, even if they don't necessarily have the money, so that you will cultivate when this guy shows up or when this woman comes into the room, that's going to be the best meeting of your day. You will enjoy this. And you see that's the Storyfire promise, is
Sure.
that it's not that I'm teaching you to tell stories, it's that I'm helping you use this tool to enhance your prospects for a more productive career.
And that's
That's the best I've ever told that. Yeah.
And Tim was the one that came up Bierke, wasn't he?
No, that was Marcus, my friend Marcus, who was a former improv actor. And that's just the way that he operates in the world, is like he cannot wait for a chance to use an accent or, to play some stupid role.
Wait,
He was
Tim got the dinosaur. No, you got the dinosaur.
I got the dinosaur from my friend Doug. Or no, I got it originally from Photo Jojo. They had packed it in the package. But my friend Doug, when I'd sent him an army man, he sent me back a rock that he painted a face on, and it said, "You rock." And then one of the gals from my office, she was a copywriter. She was the one who came up with the idea of Happy Rocks, which was the little seed balls that you would take a clay ball and put seeds in, and then you would throw it into an empty lot in Manhattan so that after a rain, it would sprout wildflowers. And all of these were a chain reaction off of that Photo Jojo thing, which is, I take a big lesson from that, which is that when you do nice things for people or you disrupt their day with something fun, they tend to vibe on that. The vibration lingers and echoes, and then they can go into the world and spread concentric circles of goodness and happiness and positivity.
And that's what happens every time I watch one of your videos. And then I share it.
Thank you.
And then somebody else sees it and they share it. And that's what this is all about.
There's a phenomenon in New York City of not everyone in New York is a Yankees fan, but everybody wears those Yankee hats. And the reason is it has become synonymous with New York City. And so what they're really doing is they're not saying I'm a Yankees fan. They're not saying I support the Yankees. What they're saying is I'm a proud New Yorker. Now, New York pride is very real. And people had, and still to some extent have, a reputation of being sort of short-tempered and angry and nasty to people. And that was not my experience. My experience with New Yorkers was that their New York pride would not allow them to be bad to tourists or nasty to waiters and waitresses. That they were often abrupt and they were plain spoken, and they would go, "Let's go, just bottom line me. What are you trying to tell me? What do you need?"
Right.
And they were impatient because New York was a pacey town, but they were never mean. And I believe that the New York Yankee hats have something to do with that. It reminds everybody that they're part of a tribe, that we all belong to each other.
Yeah.
Black guy wearing a Yankees hat, white guy wearing a Yankees hat, Chinese guy wearing a Yankees hat, Puerto Rican wearing a Yankees hat. We're all New Yorkers, man. Relax.
Forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. And that had such an appeal to me and I was a Californian, and I was very proud of being from California. Still am. But when I saw that, I thought, we need to, as Angelenos, we need to decide who we are. We need to decide what this town is about. And I don't think there's enough. Los Angeles is so big, it divides into neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's possible for Angelenos to say, here are our values. And this is what we stand for. This is what we won't tolerate. So, just a thought.
Maybe we should get a hold of Mayor Bass and have you design their new.
Well, there is something to be said for a city flag that you can identify. So, for example, the Chicago city flag, you can reproduce very easily. It's the two sky blue bands and then the 4 red stars in the
That's
center.
right. Yes.
And it's on all the cop jackets and uniforms. And what makes it what it is that it's simple to reproduce. So it's instantly recognizable, as opposed to you'll see these things and it'll have like a crest or a shield, and then there'll be like an engraving in the center. You go, I can't draw that.
Right.
Even the California flag could be simplified to be nothing more than the bear and the star, and you'd be home free, and it would be glorious, and everybody would put it on everything.
Yes.
Instead it says California Republic, and it's multicolors. No, but having a symbol, a very easily reproduced symbol. Every school child in New York can draw you the NY.
NY, yeah.
And we need something like that that's so simple. Like LA needs to decide what it is.
Well, you work on that, and I'll let you go to work on that. I so appreciate your time today, Neil. What
It's
you're
always
putting
fun
out
to
in
talk
the
to you, Mike.
world is amazing and needed.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you.
Back at you, Mike.
All right. You
We're
take
doing-
care, and we will talk soon.
All right. Cheers.
I see neighbors helping hands. Love is stronger than the plans.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us for today's episode of the Kindness Matters podcast with my very special guest, my hero, my mentor, Neil Ford. It was so awesome to talk to him. I've been watching his stuff forever, and I hope that you were able to take something from this, a positive spin, a great story. Certainly that should be appreciated. But I really appreciate that you tuned in and that you are a part of this kindness community. If you liked what you heard, leaving a quick review or comment really helps others find the show, and it means a lot to me personally. And hey, if you can't support us financially, that's totally okay. The best way you can support the show is to go out and do one random act of kindness for a stranger today. But if you are in a position to help us grow, you can make a one-time gift or join one of our monthly supporter tiers over on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the show notes. We will be back again next week with another episode, but until then, remember, kindness matters, and so do you.
Together strong, we're human first.